Our political advisor and commentator joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Now, the US president has been saying the war will last as long as needed. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think right now where we're sitting, I'll just back up for a moment and say that this U.S. and Iran war didn't erupt out of nowhere. It's the boiling point of decades of tension. Trump and Netanyahu saw Iran's nuclear push as an existential threat. So they hit first on February 28th, taking out Khamenei and crippling missile sites. Was this a smart move strategically? Maybe short term, but it's unleashed a regional firestorm that's got everyone scrambling. And I think that's where we're at right now, with Iran not backing down under the new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. They're playing the long game and closing the Strait of Hormuz. That's economic warfare 101, spiking oil to over $100 a barrel and wiping out $2 trillion off of global stocks. It's hurting American consumers at the gas pump, but it's also squeezing Iran's Gulf neighbors and forcing them to pick sides in a no-win scenario.
And I wonder what you also think of the US president, who does often speak impulsively, but he has said in the last hour that the US and Israel do have differing objectives. They could be a little different, in his words. What do you make of that?
Well, politically, this is Trump's self-inflicted wound. You know, polls are showing that 59% of Americans oppose the war, with Republicans split down the middle. That's his own party. And it's boosting nationalism in Iran as well, displacing some 3.2 million people and turning Tehran into a rallying cry against Western aggression. Meanwhile, Russia is laughing here that the eased U.S. sanctions let them rake in oil cash while sharing intel with Iran. So geopolitically, we're seeing a realignment. China and Russia are in a bind, but they're benefiting from the chaos, with Beijing's Belt and Road hit hard by Gulf attacks. And let's not forget what the U.S. is doing militarily. We're deploying 5,000 more troops, but degrading Iran's navy will not end this. It's very important to note that it's horizontal escalation here, from drones over Dubai to missiles in Israel. This could really drag in Yemen's Houthis or even spark a broader proxy mess. But bottom line is that this war is a trap of escalation without exit, and a lot of people get that. Even at this phase, right before we've hit the 2-week mark, the United States is aiming for Iran's unconditional surrender on nukes and missiles, but bombing won't birth democracy. It's a fantasy that risks World War III. And that's what I hear out of the mouths of many of my fellow Americans. They're worried about World War III. And what we need is diplomacy yesterday, before oil shocks tank the global economy and turn the Middle East into a powder keg that no one can contain. That is the fear here. And look, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I'm hearing from people that the war is in a grinding attritional phase, not in the quick victory that the president wants us to believe. Like I said, we're 2 weeks in almost, and it's clear that this isn't the 4-week sprint that Trump floated early on. So I think in general, what we're looking at is people starting to really wonder, is escalation, is it the ladder that is as steep as it seems right now? And was regime change the fantasy that's now meeting reality? So this is where we sit on this right now as Americans. We are a mix of confusion, fear, nervousness. I've heard very little from folks that they want to take the president at his word. Right now, we're sitting in almost the very thick of it, because the Strait of Hormuz is the #1 near-term risk. The effective closure is real and persistent. I mean, we're talking about traffic being down to only about 13 transits per day from something like 150 plus pre this war, pre-February 28th. Iran is not mining or blocking outright, not yet at least, but attacks on vessels, I'm talking drones, missiles, explosive boats, those create an insurance-driven shutdown. And no one, not even China, gets through that reliably. And with oil at something like $103 plus a barrel, IEA releasing reserves, this is the biggest supply shock ever. So to my clients, I just say hedge energy exposure aggressively, reroute supply chains via the Cape of Good Hope, which adds something like 10 to 15 days, and that spikes costs. and also stress test the Gulf operations you've got in place. That's what businesses have to do right now. There is a partial reopening that's possible of the Strait of Hormuz in something like 2 to 3 weeks if the United States Navy becomes ready then to escort commercial tankers. Right now, they're not. But even, again, Trump and the Pentagon are agreeing with the head of our Navy that they're not ready for that yet. So I advise folks to expect volatility through April.
And Rina, what do you make of this news that we've got in the last few hours that US media are reporting that around 2,500 or up to 5,000 Marines could be sent into the Strait of Hormuz? Do you think that's an escalation? Is that a worrying development?
Very much so, because that gets us closer to that concept of boots on the ground, putting our brave men and women who wear our uniform right in harm's way. So I am very worried about this move. This is the move that many of us had hoped would not happen, which means, again, out of the skies and out of cyber and physically in sort of the line of fire is what I would call it. That's not the exact proper military way we refer to things here, but in the layman's terms is how I can describe it. And I believe it's political suicide for President Trump and the Republicans, because if we lose any more American lives in this conflict, then he's got a lot more explaining to do to the very same people, his own people who put him in the White House again historically.
Rina Shah, political advisor and commentator. It's good to have you on the program. Thank you for your views.
My pleasure. Thank you.